Good morning. Welcome to Ramblings with Joe. Well, we've had another school shooting. It's always very sad to hear. The inability for our society to create children who do not turn into monsters is astounding to me. Someone mentioned the school shooting on Facebook, and her intent, I think, is always to reduce gun ownership in America. AR-15s and the like. I own an AR-15. I own a shotgun. I own numerous pistols. I consider it my civic duty to own an AR-15. I consider it personal protection and my civic duty to own pistols. The shotgun is for home defense. So in the comment section of this post that she made about the school shooting, I said, stop creating monsters. And her response was, again, I'm open for ideas. Well, the idea is to stop creating monsters. We're doing something wrong. We are creating individuals, and this individual is an absolute monster. Wanted to kill as many children as possible and wrote that down. Was anti-Trump 100% once Trump gone, and the things that she had written down, I do not know whether to call her or him. I think I'll go with him because it is more insulting to that individual. Well, she's gone, it doesn't matter. The idea that the tool she used to carry out this heinous act is ridiculous. We created a monster. What are we going to do to quit creating monsters? And the question that you're open to ideas is freaking ridiculous. The left took over the whole school system. It is obvious. And the school systems they didn't take over are not creating monsters. I mean, what is the saying? Correlation does not equal causation. Until it does, until there's so much overwhelming evidence that that's what's happening. So, after the shooting and after that comment on Facebook at lunch yesterday, doing research, and the nice thing about AI is you don't have to do a lot of searching on the internet and put up with all the advertisements that you get from the likes of Google. Sponsored links, what order the search engine of your choice decides to give you the results. It's going to be much better. So instead of going to Google now, I go to Grok. This is the one I'm familiar with. I tried ChatGPT. It wasn't as easy to use for me. So ease of use is a huge thing, especially when it comes to technology. So I go to Grok. At any rate, Grok confirmed some things for me. And yes, there may have been a bit of confirmation bias here, but the facts are still the facts. Whether I have confirmation bias or not, the facts are the facts. So while I was researching, some things came up. One of them was the influence that the Democrats had on the school system. And the chart that Grok eventually created from the 70s, just after the 60s, I was going to say, but I'm sure that you know that. From the 70s on, from the early 70s, the Democrats started having more and more influence on the education system until basically they had control over the education system. Now, it is true that Congress definitely has some influence, but as more and more educators became left-leaning and were in place at colleges, high schools, elementary and middle schools, the trend was obvious, and it is in place. And the only thing that anybody can do about that is try and convince kids that it's an honorable place to have a career. Right now, We just have Democrats pretty much running the schools, creating these monsters. Then I had Grok create a map of divorce rates, right in line with the control over the schools from about the 70s on, right on up there. And then I had a short conversation with Grok about school shootings. I had it create a chart, and sure enough, until the 40s, there was nothing. There was a peak in the 40s, and then till the 60s, there was nothing, and then all of a sudden, right up. We have a problem in America. The problem isn't guns. The problem is we have lost our way morally. We are creating monsters in the schools. And why are they shooting in the schools? Well, number one, it's a high target situation with a low resistance to violence. But what did the bank robber say? Why do you rob the bank? Because that's where the money is. This person also cited other shooters. So misled kids are starting to think of these shooters as something to aspire to. Again, I'm open to suggestions, because in the past when I have made those suggestions, I have gotten pushback from people on her side of the aisle that insist it's not true. I'm sorry. I disagree. It is true. The loss of moral compass in our society is leading our children astray and turning them into monsters. And when the monsters become adults, they have access to tools that can do a lot of damage. In this case, she used guns. But in the past, people have used cars, knives. The amount of violence you can do with a car is much higher than that you can do with a gun. A gun is designed for a very specific target. Using a car as a weapon, you can wipe out tons of targets, tons of people. As you're aware, I drive an 18-wheeler for a living, and trust me, an 18-wheeler, the damage it can do. It's not the tool. We're creating monsters. And at this point in our civilization, well, I think most of us were hoping that we'd be beyond this. We are not. But it hurts your sensibilities to look in on yourself and say, what is the cause of the monster? It's much easier to say the monsters have access to guns, so guns must be the problem. No, the problem is the monster. And how did we create them? That's the root cause. I got some pushback once during a conversation. I pointed out from the 40s on, things got really, really ugly in America. And of course, immediately, oh, so you want to go back to the 40s when there was rampant racism? No, that's you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I want to go back to a society that cares about each other. I want to go back to a society that is more peaceful. But that's not acceptable to you. And you will say anything to be right. And you're wrong. Lord knows I've been wrong enough times in my life. I've been wrong recently. It's not that big a deal. Scientists are wrong constantly. I'm not so sure social scientists are wrong. I think that they get they're in their mind. I think that is a misnomer, a social scientist. I think that if you are a social scientist and you've never changed your mind about the education you were given, you're not a scientist. Never thought of that. Do social scientists use the scientific method? I don't know. I think it's, I've never seen a social scientist come on a TV show and say, "I used to think, but now I believe." No, they're always, this is what it is, and I'm an expert, and you go to hell. You're wrong. I'm right, and this is unchanging education. Wow, that just hit me just now. Hit me kind of hard. Well, one of the things that hit me again this weekend is I was reading in a comment section of a news commentator that I follow, and in the comment section, they were deriding him for not being an expert. They weren't deriding, they weren't taking away from his statements. They weren't saying, this point's wrong, this point's wrong, this point's wrong. No, they were saying, you're not a social expert. You're not a political expert. You're not a scientist. Okay, well, you're not handing out degrees. You're not an expert either. Amazing to me. I've been on the internet, well, I've been online since the mid 80s. I used to go on bulletin boards in the mid 80s, but I've been on the internet since probably 93 when dial-up was a thing. And everybody was touting the internet. This is an upcoming technology. You're going to have access to so much information. You're going to be able to educate yourself. Well, guess what? People are educating themselves, and they're finding themselves in disagreement with the experts, the establishment experts. There are experts out there who have opened their minds and are using scientific data and the scientific method and coming up with different results. So, I have a political science degree. Really? Have you used the scientific method? Have you changed your mind about anything that you were taught? I have a fill-in-the-blank science degree. I assume you know what the scientific method is. I mean, I'm just a truck driver, and I know what the scientific method is. Let's get it together, people. Let's stop creating monsters. Let's find the root cause of this evilness in our society and stop it. It's not the tool. Once the guns are gone, and we're susceptible to tyranny, but once the guns are gone, they'll find a different tool. You're creating these monsters. Figure out a way to stop. Oy. Friends, it's Friday. I'm having a delicious cup of coffee. I'm getting ready to go to work. I'm going to have a good day. Sad subject. People were killed. Of course, the left immediately jumped on it to get gun control under control. The left doesn't want to do anything about the illegal aliens that they let in. Obviously, they let them in. They want them here. The left wants to blame guns for monsters. The more I'm involved with politics, the more I realize the left has kind of collectively lost their way. But I'm hoping one day they get it back together. Friday. That's where I was headed. Friday. 3-day weekend. I hope you all have a blessed 3-day weekend. I hope you go out there and have a fantastic Friday. I intend to try. I have one of those unknown days ahead of me. I don't know what's ahead of me. And that's okay, because the adventure begins when your feet hit the floor. I hope you find peace, love, and dream. Until next time, ciao.